This interview is a paid advertisement. It was produced on behalf of the company and is considered investor relations activity under Canadian securities law. All statements and opinions are those of the guest and should not be construed as investment advice. Please do your own due diligence or consult a registered investment advisor. Hello and welcome to the Golden Newsletter. Hello to a breaking news special. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the @JR Mining guy over on X, and of course, your host of this channel. But most importantly, I'm also a director of Trifecta Gold. That's the company we're discussing today. I'll be joined here in a few short seconds by the CEO, Richard Drechsler, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him because we put out drill results just this morning, and it's really important to discuss those because we're really, really happy with them, and we want to make sure that you are happy with them as well. So take everything we say with a grain of salt. I'm hugely biased. I own stock in the company. I own stock options in the company. And as I said, I'm a director of the company. The company has not paid for this interview. As I said, I'm a director. So that's where the conflict is coming from. Just really want to make you aware of that. And now let's bring Richard on. No need for me to yap on here. But Richard, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. How are things?
Yeah, things are going well. Finally getting some assays in, so the long awaited.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate you joining us here for this breaking news special, Richard. Before we dive into the results, and I can tell you're quite excited by them, give us a quick overview of Trifecta and who are we, just to remind people.
Sure, yeah. Trifecta Gold was a company created out of the Strategic Exploration Group. So we were formed as a spin-out from Strategic Metals, as a long-lived project generator in Yukon. Very well-known team of geologists behind there, and they've been involved in the discovery of many known deposits up in the Yukon territory. You know, it's a group that's been actively exploring since the 60s. And what we did with Trifecta is basically cherry-picked the property package that was assembled by Strategic Metals within the Tombstone Gold Belt. And the reason we went after the Tombstone Gold Belt is really all the new discoveries that have been made up there. So since about 2020, there's been north of 17 million ounces defined within this belt. And they're all these new deposits are being found around intrusions of a specific age. So really that's what we're targeting with Trifecta Gold.
No, fantastic. I really appreciate that overview, Richard, because you haven't been on the channel in a while, so it's good to remind people who we actually are. And one thing we've finally done this year is actually drill. We've drilled the Rye Project. It was the inaugural drilling campaign on the project. Run us through some of the details. How did we end up drilling the project?
Yeah, so the Rye Project is our project that's furthest east in the Tombstone Belt. We've got 11 targets that sort of span the width of Yukon. So lots of targets that are, like I said, targeting the same age intrusions. It's sort of a belt of intrusions that runs through the Yukon from the old Brewery Creek mine through the old the Eagle mine out to Snowline Gold's Valley discovery. Also, all these deposits are in that same belt. And so what we've been doing over the last couple of years is advancing a number of our targets to the drill ready stage. Last year, we had a crew out at the Rye Project, and they found a couple areas of intense sheeted veining in and around an intrusion of the right age. And so, those targets were just screaming at us to be drilled. We showed some photos from our prospecting last year to a few investors early in the spring, and that resulted in a financing, got us the cash to go out and do an initial drill test. So really, that's what we did. We've been executing on the plan over the last couple of years. Get out there and find the best areas within these large geochem anomalies that we have, and then really get in and do an initial drill test. And so this year, we did a 6-hole program at the Rye. We stepped out, pretty big on the system. Some of our holes are north of 500 meters apart. So trying to get a good sense of what the system could represent. And we've got results out from the first couple holes this morning, and looks like we're onto something.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of our board members used the term, we got the tiger by the tail, and we're generally excited by it. Maybe run us through the highlights here, Richard. Like, what are we seeing? What was in the core?
Yeah, sure. So our highlight result was actually from our first hole. I mean, we were right into some sheeted veining right from surface. The first hole was collared about 400 meters from the intrusion where it comes to surface. And so we're in the overlying Hornfels sedimentary rocks. And so we've got a pretty intense section of sheeted veining. And within the assays, we had a top run that was about 37 meters of over a gram. And then further down in the hole, we had another 30 meters of, 10 meters of 0.3 grams. So, a couple of nice hits on the initial run there, basically confirming that we've got gold in the system. I mean, that's really one of our big test years. We had obviously at surface lots of sheeted veining, and but the sampling is a little tough, so we had grab samples with gold here and there, but it was hard to get a real good sense of, how much gold there was throughout without doing a proper drill test. And so, yeah, that first hole came out with some really broad intersects. Our second hole, we stepped closer into the intrusive contact. Typically in the model, it's near the I guess the carapace of these intrusions where you get most of the sheeted veining, and that's where you get sort of these deposits get developed. So we started to work our way in towards the intrusion, and yeah, hole 2 we're right near the margin, so we're seeing some intrusive rock in that hole, intermingled with the sedimentary rocks. But we also hit a very high grade vein right there, probably actually our highest gold assay from the property to date. It's a couple foot wide vein in there that graded about 44 grams per ton gold. So we know there's some really high grade spots now in this system as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of thin section work on that to try to get an idea of exactly where the gold is located, what minerals it's associated with, and we still have all of our multi-element data is outstanding. So there's a lot more information that's going to be coming in with these drill holes that's going to help our future targeting. But I mean, the key to this first program was, is there gold in the system or not? And we've shown, there's not only there high grade pockets, but we've got some broad intersects as well in our first hole. So lots of excitement around here right now.
Absolutely, yeah, no, super excited about the results. On a first pass drill program, absolutely phenomenal. Like multi-element assays, like just explain that real quick to our audience. What are we still waiting for? What kind of assays are we missing here?
Yeah, so initially when the core is ground up and processed, it'll go through a fire assay first, and that's where we get the gold analyses. And then once the fire assay is complete, then they send the pulps in for multi-element analysis, where we'll get the full suite. So we'll be able to see, what our bismuths and telluriums and whatnot are, and you use some of these other subsidiary elements to try to vector in towards, where's the sweet spot of this system. And so once that data comes in with some of our other holes that, as I mentioned, are step outs from the ones we're announcing today, that'll help us start to vector in towards where we would think, where the core of this deposit would be. But there's definitely lots of room around the holes we drilled this summer.
No, fantastic. Like, Richard, give us a bit of guidance. Like, what can we expect? We're still missing some holes, of course. Like, what's the timeline moving forward here?
Hope to get the balance of the holes in by the end or before the end of the year. So we'll see, I guess, once QA/QC gets done, if the final results are out just before Christmas or in the early new year. But yeah, I mean, they're starting to come in. Our core was dropped off sequentially. So as we were cutting it, we were delivering it to the lab. So some of the core they haven't had for as long. So it'll be another couple of weeks, I guess. But
no, fantastic. Yeah, in terms of planning for next season, I know it's ultra early days. Like in terms of like, okay, how are we using these results to move on? Like, how are we planning next year? Can you give us a bit of an idea what we're looking at? I know it's early days.
Yeah, so we're definitely looking to be following up on these results, right? So once we get the balance in, we'll be able to refine our drill program a little bit more. But if you look at our plan map, it seems fairly obvious to start with some just sort of grid drilling around those initial targets. We've got a lot of vertical as you move to the west. The topography goes up quite a bit, so there's quite a few tons of rock that sort of sit between us and the Pluton, even at higher elevations. So as I mentioned, our gold was starting right from surface, and we do have a number of high grade results that are, if they're in vertical structures, it wouldn't have been tested by the holes that we did this year. So we know there's a lot of mineralization outside of the area that was drill tested, and so it's really just the next program is going to be starting to look at how big this system could be. Really, the first pass was trying to test a few different environments to figure out, okay, where is the gold in the system? We drilled in the Hornfels, we drilled right near the margin, we drilled some in the intrusion. That was, I guess, our third hole was a bit of a surprise to us. We put out some photos from it in previous releases, and there wasn't really any reportable gold in the intrusion in hole 3. So that was a little bit of a surprise. But again, still waiting on multi-element. We'll see if there's a bit of a different signature in there with some of the other elements. But yeah, it's definitely quite a positive start here, obviously, and yeah, looking forward to getting back out there in the spring. So we've been working on permitting a larger drill program, so we can get possibly another rig out there on site. I mean, the more rigs you put on site, the lower your cost per meter is. We're only about 14 kilometers off a road, so it's quite well located. Not far from the Mac Pass camp that Fireweed Metals is operating. So it's tons of activity going on in the area. So it'll be a good place to be working again next summer.
Absolutely. I can't wait to go back in next year and visit myself. I haven't been to the project yet myself, Richard. I've been to Mactung, but I haven't been to, or sorry, I've been to Fireweed, but I haven't been to the Rye yet. So we need to rectify that next summer. Really
Definitely.
looking forward to that. Richard, thank you so much for joining us here. Just a big breaking news special. Really excited about the results. And maybe just remind us next catalysts. What should we be looking for? A bit of just a summary.
Yeah, so we'll have the balance of our drill results coming out. We still have 3 more holes to announce, and then all the multi-element data from the holes that we announced, and then the balance of the 6 drill holes. So, yeah, a little bit more news coming from us probably before the Christmas break. We'll see how quick the assays go, and then we'll be hitting it, full steam ahead in the new year.
Brilliant. Really, really appreciate you joining us, Richard. Thank you so much for sharing, the latest here from the Rye. Fantastic drill results. We're super excited, of course, internally. So, Richard, thanks so much for doing that now, and everybody else, thank you so much for joining us here for this breaking news special. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Richard Drechsler. If you did, or if you're a shareholder in the company, or you just enjoy the story, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously, reach a wider investor audience. We tremendously appreciate it, and we'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter channel. Take care out there.